Hello everyone, today we're going to unravel something that might just change the way you see yourself and your routines. Imagine this, it's still dark out, the birds aren't even awake yet, and I'm lacing up my sneakers with surgical precision. There's a green smoothie sweating on the counter, a candle flickering beside my planner, and a painfully chipper audiobook whispering about grit into my AirPods. It all looks perfect. Except I'm dead inside. You probably won't survive the average, optimized lifestyle that TikTok and podcasts swear by. Not without some side effects that no one posts about. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Oh, and drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Now, let's get comfortable, and let's get started today. It started with a YouTube video. Just one. A well-edited, coffee-scented montage of someone waking up at 5 a.m., doing push-ups next to a motivational quote wall, and sipping lemon water in slow motion. I watched it twice. Then I decided that's it. That's the life I want. What I didn't realize at the time was that I was buying into an aesthetic, not a solution. Within 2 days, I was setting my alarm for 4:58 a.m. so I could beat the morning. The first few mornings, I felt invincible. I was up before the sun, and I'd finished more tasks by 7:30 than most people manage by lunch. The world was mine. Until, well, it wasn't. It turns out, your body doesn't care about your dreams of becoming a high-performance legend. It cares about cortisol and REM sleep and that weird hormone called melatonin that sounds like a sleep supplement but is actually your circadian best friend. And I was betraying all of it for productivity porn. There's a reason the military trains people to wake up early. It breaks you. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Just enough to make your brain run a little slower, your emotions a little rawer, your focus a little fuzzier. That's exactly what started happening to me. I became robotic. I was checking off boxes in my morning routine like a factory worker assembling a luxury car I couldn't afford. Wake. Hydrate. Read 10 pages. Journal. Stretch. Gratitude list. Every step had a time limit. It was like morning boot camp for the soul. The irony? I was supposed to be living intentionally. But I wasn't thinking, I was executing. And if I missed one step, I'd feel like a fraud. A failure. One morning, around week 5, I sat in bed with my sneakers already on. I was too tired to stand. My eyes burned. My brain was molasses. I remember thinking, this is what success is supposed to feel like. There's a human intelligence fact I stumbled on later that floored me. Your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, doesn't even fully wake up for 2 hours after you do. So waking up early to think clearly might actually be the worst idea. You're not a machine. You're a meat-based slow starter with blurry vision and a brain that needs coffee and compassion. And let me drop in something random because the internet taught me this, and it's too weird not to share. Sloths can hold their breath longer than dolphins. I wish I was kidding. Sometimes I wish I was a sloth. They look like they've got their priorities straight. Anyway, the early mornings didn't give me more time. They just shifted the timeline of my exhaustion. By 1 p.m., I was a husk. I'd tried to push through with caffeine and more checklist items. But the truth? I was zombified, existing on momentum and guilt. All the gurus online were selling it like gospel. Winners wake early. Own your morning. 5 a.m. is the gateway to greatness. They said it with conviction. And expensive microphones. But what they didn't say is that waking up early doesn't create discipline. It just rearranges your suffering. And if you don't go to bed earlier, you're just borrowing energy you don't have. Like living off credit cards, except the debt is physical, and the interest rate is anxiety. The academic world is still debating the long-term benefits of early rising. Some say it correlates with success. Others argue it's correlation, not causation. People who wake early are already wired that way. The rest of us? We're just mimicking them and hoping it sticks. But what stuck for me wasn't success. It was resentment. I started hating the thing I once loved. My morning routine, the thing I bragged about, became a monster I had to feed daily. And the worst part? People praised me for it. They saw the Instagram stories, the pretty notebooks, the fresh fruit. They said, "You're so disciplined." If only they knew. One morning, after I nearly fell asleep while brushing my teeth, I sat down and whispered to myself, "What are you doing?" Not in a dramatic way. Just in that tired, disappointed tone you use when you catch your dog chewing on something important. The answer? I didn't know. I'd lost the plot. I wasn't doing this for joy, or presence, or even clarity. I was doing it because I thought I had to. Because everyone said this was the way. Because discipline was sexy and chaos was shameful. But real talk? A little chaos is human. A little sleeping in is sacred. And no smoothie is worth your soul. The funny thing is, I didn't even like kale. Not really. It tasted like leaf-colored sandpaper and had the emotional warmth of a wet sock. But I ate it anyway. I blended it with frozen bananas and collagen powder, because somewhere deep in my subconscious I believed that was the price of health. Or virtue. Or both. The wellness thing snuck up on me. At first, it was innocent, just me trying to be a better version of myself. I swapped out my morning bagel for overnight oats. I started following wellness influencers who spoke in soft tones and wore linen. I bought a tongue scraper. That's a thing, in case you didn't know. It scrapes your tongue. Apparently, that's wellness. It didn't feel obsessive at first. It felt good. I was making green choices. I was journaling at sunrise with a cup of mushroom coffee and listening to rain sounds that may or may not have been recorded in a Himalayan cave. I was glowing, or so I thought. But then it took a turn. I started judging myself for craving a cookie. I'd skip meals because I wasn't sure if the restaurant used seed oils. I panicked when I couldn't find my favorite brand of adaptogen-infused sparkling water. And don't even get me started on the time I cried, yes, cried, because my gratitude journal got water damage. Somewhere in the fog of positive habits and influencer-approved routines, I'd lost the plot again. The pursuit of wellness had mutated into a game of control. There's a term for this, by the way, orthorexia. It's not as well known as other disorders, but it's just as slippery. It's an obsession with eating right, living clean, doing everything perfectly, to the point where it wrecks your mental and physical health. I didn't realize how deep I was until one night at a friend's birthday dinner. I brought my own salad dressing in a tiny mason jar. Like a tiny, balsamic-scented red flag. Nobody said anything, but I caught the glance. That quick, polite smile that says, "You do you." But also, "Wow, are you okay?" I laughed it off, but inside, I felt like a fraud. A walking health poster with a panic disorder. It turns out that even good habits, done compulsively, become cages. What's wild is how normalized this all is. We don't even blink anymore when someone declines cake because they're detoxing. We call it discipline, dedication, biohacking. But sometimes it's just a dressed-up fear of being out of control. One night I spent 45 minutes researching the cleanest protein powder on the planet. I was scrolling through Reddit threads and watching YouTube comparisons under the covers while my partner slept beside me. That was the moment I realized I'd rather spend nearly an hour reading about pea isolates than just admit I didn't feel safe in my body unless I was following rules. Here's a fun off-topic fact, just to shake things up: wombat poop is cube-shaped. Nobody really knows why. But they do stack it to mark their territory, like little fuzzy masons of the marsupial world. I wish I had that level of confidence. Back to me and my spiraling relationship with self-care. It had morphed into a religion. A strict, rule-heavy religion where I prayed to chia seeds and repented with activated charcoal. And ironically, all the clean choices made me feel filthy inside. Ashamed if I skipped my green powder. Guilty if I had a lazy day. Anxious if I didn't hit my 10K steps, even if it was raining sideways and my knee was acting like it belonged to a much older person. The academic community has started to notice this too. There's a growing debate around whether the wellness industry actually promotes health or just sells the illusion of control to anxious people. You know, like me. It's a weird space between evidence-based lifestyle upgrades and the marketing machine that profits off your insecurity. For every legit tip about heart health or gut bacteria, there are 5 fear-based posts about the dangers of plastic straws and non-organic strawberries. It's hard to know where science ends and culty vibes begin. And when you live in that space, your entire day becomes a performance. Morning routines become photo ops. Lunch becomes a minefield. And any deviation feels like moral failure. You start to think, if I don't do this right, I'm doing it wrong. There's no in-between. No softness. I miss softness. I miss lazy Sundays and cheap tacos and laughing until I snorted soda out my nose. I miss being present. I miss flavor. I miss me. The real me. The one who once ate cereal for dinner and watched bad sitcoms without wondering if screen time was wrecking my pineal gland. But admitting that I was struggling felt embarrassing. Because I was the healthy one. People came to me for advice. Asked about my supplements. My brand of yoga mat. My morning elixirs. The last straw was a vacation. I packed protein bars, green powder, supplements, and even a travel-size frother so I could make my mushroom coffee in the hotel. That's when I realized I wasn't going on a trip. I was dragging my entire neurosis across state lines. So I stopped. Cold turkey. I ate what I wanted. I skipped my journaling. I took naps. Real naps. The unearned, unapologetic kind. And you know what? The world didn't end. My skin didn't fall off. My soul didn't rot. I laughed louder. Slept deeper. Felt things I hadn't felt in months. Joy. Spontaneity. A weird craving for onion rings. The wellness trap is that it pretends to free you. But often, it's just a prettier prison. One with essential oils and soft lighting. The walls may be covered in motivational quotes, but they're still walls. Now I treat wellness like seasoning. Not the main course. Just a little sprinkle of breathwork here, a dash of movement there. Enough to flavor my life, not control it. Because health isn't a list. It's not a smoothie. It's not a biohacked morning that starts with mushroom coffee and ends with magnesium lotion. Sometimes it's just laughing on the floor with your dog and eating a burrito with 2 hands because one hand won't do it justice. And that's okay. I don't remember when I first heard about habit stacking, but I do remember the exact moment I took it too far. It started simple, attach one habit to another. Like brushing your teeth and then immediately doing 10 push-ups. Or making coffee and then journaling while it brews. Smart, right? Efficient. Clean. Sharp. A beautiful, minimalist ballet of self-improvement. Except I stacked too many. Like, way too many. My mornings turned into a Rube Goldberg machine of optimized intention. One task triggered another, which triggered another, which triggered an existential crisis halfway through my second round of nasal breathing exercises. All before breakfast. And it worked, on the surface. I became this highly efficient, tightly wound bundle of function. Tasks flew by. Lists got checked. I could meditate, stretch, hydrate, and track my water intake all before 6:15 a.m. It looked incredible on paper. Like I'd solved life. But inside? I was hollow. People think burnout looks like crying at your desk or forgetting your name mid-conversation. But mine looked like quiet numbness. It looked like smiling while I meal prepped quinoa I didn't even like. It looked like journaling thoughts I no longer believed. It looked like being able to complete 17 habits in a row and not feel a single thing. The funny part? I was actually less productive. Oh, I did more. But my mind wandered constantly. I had so little bandwidth for spontaneity or emotion that I started avoiding phone calls, even from people I loved. I couldn't improvise anymore. If something messed up the flow, I short-circuited. Because habit stacking wasn't just a time hack anymore. It had become a personality. That's the part no one warns you about. If you stack enough good habits, they stop being tools and start becoming your entire sense of self. Who are you? Well, I'm the person who journals with a fountain pen after doing nasal breathing and before gratitude visualization and matcha whisking. Yikes. There's a fact I came across while deep in this phase that still haunts me. The average person only has 10 to 15 minutes per day of real, focused attention. The rest is noise. Which means if you waste that precious slice performing your stacked routine instead of living, what even are you doing? I remember one afternoon, someone called me up and said, "Hey, want to grab lunch?" And I froze. Not because I didn't want to see them, but because it wasn't on the schedule. I hadn't budgeted for it in my stack. My gut reaction wasn't joy. It was panic. And that's when I realized I had accidentally built a cage. Out of good things. Beautiful things. Things that once made me feel alive. But the moment they became rigid, scheduled, and sacred, they stopped serving me. Academic research in behavioral science actually debates this issue. Habit stacking can be effective, but some studies suggest that when routines become too tightly interwoven, the brain becomes less adaptive, less creative, less capable of navigating change. You're essentially training yourself to be a very efficient robot, until someone kicks the robot over. That's what I had become, a very fragile robot with excellent hydration and no social life. And it's weird because habit stacking makes you feel like you're leveling up. You get little dopamine hits every time you complete the next task. It's addictive. The problem is, you stop asking if those tasks are still valuable to you. They just become obligations. Like, there was a time when I genuinely enjoyed writing in my journal. It felt sacred. Like lighting a little lantern inside my mind. But once it became a box to check after stretching and before my 5-minute joy scan, it lost all meaning. I remember rereading an entry once and thinking, wow, who is this person? It didn't sound like me anymore. It sounded like a motivational podcast ghostwriting my thoughts. And don't even get me started on my relationships during that time. I was present technically, but not really. I'd go on a walk with someone and secretly count my steps to hit my target. I'd be listening, but my mind would drift toward whether I'd meditated long enough that morning. I became emotionally unavailable, and I didn't even realize it. That's the irony of hyperproductivity. You become so good at doing that you forget how to be. I miss nuance. I miss pauses. I miss the little gaps in the day where nothing had to happen. Just silence. Just breath. Just staring at the ceiling and wondering what clouds taste like. Instead, I was stacking. Always stacking. Trying to turn life into a spreadsheet of self-worth. And when it didn't feel right, I doubled down. Maybe I need more habits. Maybe I need a better app. Maybe I need to journal harder. Turns out, the only thing I needed was to stop. So one day, I deleted the app one was using to track everything. Cold turkey. I threw out the color-coded schedule. I told my routines, "It's not you, it's me." It was terrifying. I woke up the next day without a plan. Just vibes. I sat on the edge of my bed like a person who had forgotten how to live. And then, slowly, I figured it out. I stretched because my body felt stiff. I drank water because I was thirsty. I called someone just to say hi. I even took a nap. Not scheduled. Not rewarded. Just needed. And it felt so weirdly alive. I'm not saying habit stacking is evil. It's not. It's a tool. A powerful one. But like any tool, if you use it without intention, it stops being helpful and starts being armor. Heavy, rigid, suffocating armor made of gratitude, hydration, and sunrise yoga. Now I stack maybe 2 things. 3 on a good day. And if something interrupts it, I let it. Because real life isn't built on perfectly executed habits. It's built on messy, beautiful interruptions. And sometimes the best moments come when you forget what you were supposed to be doing. The night I decided to hack my sleep, I stayed up 4 extra hours reading about how to get better rest. Ironic, right? I had stumbled into a rabbit hole. One minute I was Googling how to wake up feeling refreshed. And the next thing I knew, I was ankle deep in blogs about magnesium sprays, red light therapy, blue light blocking glasses with frames that made me look like a 1997 hacker, and the horrifying effects of EMFs from your Wi-Fi router. Suddenly, sleep wasn't rest. It was a science experiment. I bought a sleep tracker. A wearable ring that monitored my heart rate, skin temperature, and, if I remember correctly, my soul. I rearranged my room to face magnetic north. I banned screens after 8 p.m., installed blackout curtains, and tried to fall asleep to white noise loops titled things like soothing cranial frequencies for deep delta state. It got weird fast. I wasn't sleeping better. I was thinking about sleeping better. Constantly. I'd lie there in a perfectly optimized sleep cave, heart thumping under organic bamboo sheets, and stress over whether I was entering REM fast enough. Because here's the kicker, the more I tried to control my sleep, the more elusive it became. It's like trying to fall in love on command. The effort ruins the magic. It turns out, sleep is one of those things that hates being micromanaged. It likes rhythms, not rules. Flow, not force. But I didn't know that yet. Instead, I doubled down. I tried mouth tape, yes, mouth tape, to encourage nasal breathing. I took cold showers before bed to trigger thermoregulation. I even listened to a podcast episode on sleep so boring, it almost worked. Almost. The human intelligence fact here is wild. The placebo effect is stronger with sleep than almost any other part of wellness. Just believing you had a good night's sleep can improve memory, alertness, and even reaction time. No joke. You can literally placebo yourself into being more rested. But I couldn't placebo anything, because I was too busy tracking everything. I woke up every morning and checked my sleep score before checking how I actually felt. And that's when I realized I was outsourcing my sense of well-being to a number. It was a trap. I'd see a bad sleep score and feel tired even when I wasn't. It was like a horoscope from a pessimistic robot. Today, you're 65% functional. Good luck. I remember one morning I felt amazing. Energized. Light. But the app told me my sleep was suboptimal. My mood plummeted. Suddenly I felt groggy, even though I hadn't until that moment. That's how powerful the story in your head can be. Also, quick breather with a weird fact, flamingos can only eat with their heads upside down. That's how their beaks are shaped. Makes you wonder how they figured that out without choking on pond slime. Anyway, back to me choking on perfectionism. My breaking point came during a weekend trip. I forgot my sleep ring charger. One night without data. And I panicked. I was genuinely anxious, not because I feared poor sleep, but because I wouldn't know how well I slept. The data had become my bedtime deity. That night, with nothing to track me, I had the deepest sleep in months. I woke up confused and slightly annoyed. Like, how dare I feel rested without my $300 gadget's permission? Academic researchers actually go back and forth on this. Orthosomnia is the name they've given to the anxiety created by sleep tracking. It's a very modern problem. People so obsessed with sleeping well that they ruin their sleep trying. So there I was, optimized into oblivion. I wasn't resting, I was performing rest. I had turned sleep, the most primal and essential part of being human, into a nightly audition for health. And let's talk about dreams for a second. You know how they get really vivid when you're under pressure or exhausted? Mine became epic cinematic events. Every night, my brain staged elaborate stories starring people I hadn't seen in 10 years. I once had a dream that my houseplant was mad at me and had grown legs to walk out. When I woke up, I apologized to it. That's how bad it got. But this whole saga taught me something important, something obvious, but easy to forget. You can't optimize your way into peace. True rest isn't just the absence of movement. It's the absence of needing to prove something. It's trust. Letting go. Letting your body take over. And ironically, that only happens when you stop watching it like a hawk. Eventually, I ditched the ring. Not because it didn't work, but because I did. I started listening to my body again. I went to bed when I was sleepy. I stopped obsessing over wind-down routines. I even watched a few episodes of a dumb show before bed without guilt. And guess what? I still sleep. Most nights, better than before. Maybe not perfect. But peaceful. Real. Now, I treat sleep like a cat. You can't call it over or lure it with treats. You just create a quiet, safe space, and wait. Sometimes it curls up next to you. Sometimes it doesn't. Either way, you don't chase it. You let it come to you. Because rest isn't earned. It's allowed. And I don't care what my aura score says about that. The first time I tried to meditate, I was sitting on the floor of my bedroom, cross-legged, with one eye slightly open to make sure my incense didn't burn down the bookshelf. The app one was using told me to just notice my breath. So I did. And then I noticed that I was noticing my breath. And then I noticed that I was noticing myself noticing my breath. It was like falling down a spiral staircase of awareness. Only slower. I thought meditation would make me peaceful. What it actually did was expose the chaos I'd been covering up with productivity and protein bars. Mindfulness is sold as this soft, gentle practice. Like floating in a hammock made of moonlight. But what no one tells you is that when you sit still long enough, the noise you've been running from finally catches up with you. And it doesn't knock. It barges in wearing a bathrobe and carrying emotional baggage you forgot you even packed. After the third week of meditating daily, I started having weird thoughts. Not deep epiphanies or tranquil revelations. Just weird stuff. Like, why do I remember the theme song from that 90s toothpaste commercial? Or, what if my neighbor is secretly a magician? It wasn't enlightenment. It was mental static. I became terrified of my own mind. Because when everything else went quiet, my inner voice got loud. Too loud. It started replaying awkward conversations from 2013. It asked uncomfortable questions about who I was trying to become. It reminded me that I still hadn't called my aunt back. Suddenly, sitting still felt like swimming in emotional quicksand. I told a friend, and they said, "Oh, that's normal. That's part of the process." Cool. But no one ever markets that part. They don't tell you that mindfulness can make you feel like your brain is a haunted house. With echoes. And creaky floorboards. And a ghost that looks like you but never sleeps. A fact I learned in my deep dive into neuroscience. The average human brain produces about 6,000 thoughts per day. That's one thought every 10 seconds if you're awake for 16 hours. And in meditation? You meet every one of those little gremlins, dressed in your insecurities and smelling faintly of regret. Still, I kept at it. I kept sitting in silence with my eyes closed and my spine suspiciously straight. I even tried meditating in public once, in a park, next to a man feeding pigeons who said, "Are you okay?" Honestly, it was a fair question. I started tracking my meditations. Timing them. Rating them. I gave them titles. Anxious but focused. Distracted and itchy. Brief transcendence followed by an urgent need to pee. It became less about awareness and more about performance. Another habit. Another metric. One day, I caught myself checking how many minutes I'd meditated compared to a friend. That's when I realized I had turned peace into a competition. Like spiritual CrossFit. But here's the thing. Mindfulness is not about being good at being calm. It's about seeing things clearly, even if those things are uncomfortable. It's not about deleting thoughts. It's about witnessing them without losing your grip. There's still academic debate around mindfulness and its universal benefits. Some researchers argue it's overprescribed. That it doesn't help everyone. That for certain people, especially those with trauma, it can open doors they're not ready to walk through. And I get that now. Because I wasn't meditating to heal. I was meditating to escape, and meditation has a very rude way of not letting you do that. Also, random detour, octopuses have 3 hearts. 2 pump blood to the gills, and 1 pumps it to the rest of the body. And when they swim, the heart that pumps to the body stops. which, for some reason, feels emotionally relatable. Anyway, the turning point came when I stopped trying to do it right. I stopped treating meditation like a chore. Some days I just sat in silence and stared at a wall. No app. No timer. Just me and my stupid, beautiful brain throwing thoughts at me like confetti. And some of those thoughts were terrifying. Some were sad. Some were hilarious. I once spent 20 silent minutes just replaying every weird thing I've ever said in an elevator. But I sat with them. I let them be. I didn't try to silence them. And eventually, they softened. My mind became less like a haunted house and more like a messy apartment. Still cluttered, sure. Still loud. But lived in. Familiar. With windows that opened. Now, mindfulness isn't something I do to fix myself. It's something I do to remember that I'm not broken. Some mornings, I sit quietly for 5 minutes. Some mornings, I forget entirely. And you know what? That's fine. Mindfulness doesn't care if you're consistent. It cares if you're honest. So now, when I meditate, I don't try to be still. I don't chase transcendence. I just sit. Breathe. Blink slowly. Listen to the weird radiator sounds and the neighbors arguing about leftovers. I let my thoughts walk in and out like guests at a party. Some of them stay too long. Some bring snacks. Some spill red wine on the rug. But they all leave eventually. And when they do, I'm still here. Breathing. Blinking. Real. I used to love the phrase. No 0 days. It felt powerful. Sharp. Like a knife that could cut through laziness. The idea was simple. Every day, do something toward your goals. Even if it's just one sit-up. One sentence in your journal. One glass of water. Just don't let the day end on 0. Sounds reasonable, right? Until you realize it doesn't stop at 1. At first, it was great. Motivating. I'd write 1 paragraph of my book on a day when I had nothing left in the tank, and I'd feel like a champion. I'd floss 1 tooth and feel virtuous. I was gaming the system, and it felt smart. But slowly, something shifted. That something is better than nothing turned into something isn't enough. I started pushing. 1 paragraph became 2. 2 became 5. I didn't want a streak of just barely's. I wanted days that counted. And then, I wanted all the days to count. I started doing push-ups at midnight because I didn't want the day to end without movement. I typed half-baked thoughts into my notes app just to say I had journaled. I read half a page of a self-help book with one I opened before bed, just so I could feel like I hadn't wasted the day. The problem? I was exhausted. Not in a big dramatic way. In a quiet, creepy way. Like a car engine that sounds fine but smells faintly of smoke. No 0 days had become no rest days. I wasn't living, I was avoiding guilt. Performing for a little invisible audience of future me, who I assumed would thank me for pushing through. Spoiler, he didn't. There's a known fact in psychology. The brain struggles to distinguish between productive and compulsive behavior when motivation is fear-based. And that's what I'd stumbled into. I wasn't motivated by love or purpose or vision. I was just scared of what it meant to stop. Also, this might be the right moment for an odd fact. Butterflies can taste with their feet. That's how they know where to lay eggs. It's like walking into a restaurant barefoot and deciding what to eat based on the flavor of the floor. Back to my daily panic. The issue with no 0 days is that it sounds gentle. Harmless. But if you're wired like me, someone who ties self-worth to output, it becomes a contract. One that slowly tightens around your life until even sleeping in feels like breaking a promise. I remember one Sunday when I was sick. Like full body ache, sinuses waging war, throat made of sandpaper. And I still forced myself to do 10 squats by my bed so the day wouldn't be a 0. I looked like a sick chicken doing yoga. Why? For what? That's when I realized the habit had stopped helping me grow. It had started helping me hide. There's academic disagreement over whether streak-based habits are sustainable long-term. Some argue they build resilience. Others warn they create brittleness, because once you miss a day, the house of cards falls. And I felt that. One missed day and I'd spiral. What if I never get back on track? What if this ruins my progress? It's like flossing one tooth just to say you did, then panicking because you missed a molar, and now your mouth is doomed. The more I clung to the streak, the more it owned me. I built this prison out of micro-wins. Every day, I needed to log something. Record it. Feel the artificial high of knowing I hadn't wasted a day. But I wasn't resting. I wasn't playing. I wasn't even feeling half the time. I was checking boxes in a life-sized calendar made of shame. And the strangest part? Nobody noticed. From the outside, I looked disciplined, productive, consistent. People praised me for my routines. You're always on top of things. You're so motivated. They saw the highlight reel, but not the quiet spiral backstage. That's the thing about habit culture. It rewards consistency without asking why you're doing it. So one day I stopped. On purpose. I did nothing. I called it a true zero. And it terrified me. I woke up, stayed in bed, didn't write, didn't stretch, didn't drink lemon water, didn't read, didn't pretend to meditate. I just lay there and stared at the ceiling, trying not to panic. At first, my brain screamed. You're falling behind. You're getting soft. You'll regret this. But then something else crept in, stillness. Quiet. A little crack of sunlight on the sheets. The smell of rain through the open window. The reminder that not all value has to be earned. That night, I didn't log anything. And I still slept. No apocalypse. No loss of meaning. Just rest. Now, I don't chase streaks. I chase presence. Some days I write a ton. Some days I write nothing. Neither makes me better or worse. Just real. Because I finally learned the difference between discipline and obsession. Discipline is a choice. Obsession is a compulsion. One frees you. The other consumes you. And honestly, a real life has a few 0 days. That's how you know you're alive. I used to love my habit tracker. It was this shiny little app with color-coded graphs, satisfying, streak, animations, and a homepage that made me feel like a productivity wizard. I could see everything: how often I read, stretched, journaled, drank water, meditated, flossed, slept early, you name it. It was beautiful. Organized. Addictive. At first, it motivated me. A little green checkmark every time I finished something. Each click felt like a win. I told myself I was building discipline. That I was holding myself accountable. But somewhere along the line, that tiny dopamine buzz turned into dread. I wasn't chasing growth anymore. I was avoiding punishment. If I missed a day, the app would scold me with a little message. Try not to break the chain. Or, keep your streak alive. I felt like I was babysitting a Tamagotchi made entirely of guilt. And it didn't stop at the app. I printed out physical habit calendars too. Posted them on my wall like motivational propaganda. Every blank square stared at me like an accusation. What did you even do on June 14th, huh? Where were you on May 3rd, coward? Eventually, I started faking it. Yep. I'd check off habits I hadn't done, just to keep the streak going. Did I actually journal? Well, I thought about journaling. Did I walk 10K steps? I mean, I walked to the fridge, so technically. The worst part? I knew I was lying. But I had to. Because breaking the chain felt like failure. Like I was undoing all the progress I'd made. Which is ridiculous when you think about it. One skipped habit doesn't erase a life. But in my head it did. There's a strange psychological phenomenon called the effort justification effect. Basically, the more time and energy you pour into something, the more you convince yourself it must be worth it, even if it's making you miserable. That was me and the tracker. I had invested so much time in it that letting it go felt like betrayal. Also, unrelated but fascinating, koalas have fingerprints nearly identical to humans. In fact, their prints have been confused for humans at crime scenes. Which means somewhere, a koala might have been framed. Justice for the eucalyptus gang. Anyway, back to my slow descent into tracker madness. I became obsessive. I wouldn't go to sleep without logging everything. Even if it was 1 a.m. Even if I was sick. Even if I had nothing meaningful to record. The tracker had become my bedtime ritual. Not brushing teeth. Not reading. Just updating the damn app. It stopped being about progress. It started being about control. I started judging my worth based on my tracker. Good day? All habits logged. I was proud. Bad day? Missed 1 or 2? I was trash. It was a scoreboard that only I could see, and I was still losing. There's a growing debate in behavioral psychology about habit trackers. Yes, they can help establish routines. But there's increasing evidence they can also worsen anxiety and reduce intrinsic motivation. Once the external reward is gone, the checkmark, the streak, you're left wondering why you ever started in the first place. That hit me hard. Because I realized I didn't know why I started anymore. Did I really care about journaling daily? Or was I just scared of losing my 73-day streak? Was I still enjoying morning walks, or was I just terrified of that red X on my calendar? I had turned a tool for growth into a scoreboard of shame. And the weirdest part? No one else cared. No one ever asked, "Hey, did you meditate every single day this month?" No one gave me a cookie for brushing my teeth 365 days in a row. This pressure? It was all me. It's funny how we create these invisible bosses in our heads. Like some cosmic manager is reviewing our personal stats and determining our value. Oh, you miss yoga on Thursday? Yeah, that's gonna show up in your quarterly self-worth report. No. It won't. The turning point came when I went on a weekend trip and forgot to bring my phone. No tracker. No way to log anything. Just vibes. At first, I panicked. How would I remember what I did? What if I couldn't retroactively fill it in? But then something amazing happened. I lived. I stretched on the balcony because it felt good, not because I needed to log it. I sipped coffee slowly, without checking off. Mindful beverage consumption. I took a nap. A full, unearned nap. And it felt incredible. That night, for the first time in over a year, I didn't log anything. And the world didn't end. When I got home, I opened the app, looked at the broken streaks, and felt free. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Just free. Now, I don't use habit trackers. I use memory. Intuition. I ask myself, what do I need today? Not, what did the calendar say I should do? Because the truth is, life isn't a checklist. It's messy. Beautiful. Fluid. Sometimes your most productive day looks like sweatpants and cereal at noon. Sometimes your best win is not crying at the grocery store. And that's okay. So if you're staring at a wall of unchecked boxes and feeling like a failure, I want you to hear this. You are not your streak. You are not your tracker. You are not a broken project to be fixed with systems. You're a person. A complex, chaotic, incredible person. And you're allowed to rest. Dopamine detoxing. Just the phrase makes me laugh now. But back then? It sounded like the Holy Grail. The answer to all my restlessness, distraction, compulsive scrolling, and late-night snacks. Your brain is addicted to dopamine, they said. Remove stimulation, and you'll reclaim focus, motivation, joy. So I did it. I took it seriously. No screens. No sugar. No music. No podcasts. No eye contact with strangers. No conversations unless absolutely necessary. I didn't even allow myself to doodle. Just me, my thoughts, and the wall. And let me tell you, nothing makes you question your life faster than spending 4 hours staring at a wall. I thought I'd unlock some ancient, monk-like calm. Instead, I discovered that boredom is a powerful hallucinogen. By hour 3, I swear I started hearing my houseplants gossiping about me. I caught myself counting dust particles in a sunbeam like it was an Olympic sport. The idea behind dopamine detoxing is that modern life bombards us with instant gratification. Likes, alerts, caffeine, background noise. We become desensitized. So, if we strip it all away, we reset our brains. Rebalance the reward system. Become monks. Or billionaires. Or monk billionaires. But what no one told me was that removing joy doesn't magically create depth. It just creates emptiness. There's a human intelligence fact for you. Dopamine isn't the enemy. It's a motivator. It's not just linked to pleasure, it's linked to effort. People with higher dopamine levels are often more willing to work hard for delayed rewards. So the idea that dopamine equals bad is misleading at best, and at worst, a complete misunderstanding of how motivation even works. I learned this the hard way while sipping flavorless tea in a room so quiet I could hear my heartbeat. I wasn't focused. I was twitchy, irritable, slightly murderous. My brain wasn't resetting, it was rebelling. I lasted a full weekend. 2 days of near monastic silence, broken only by trips to the bathroom and one emergency moment where I hummed a song under my breath and immediately felt like I'd committed a crime. And yet, I kept doing it. Once a month. I'd go full dopamine monk and remove all sources of stimulation for 24 to 48 hours. I even created a checklist. Do nothing. Think nothing. Want nothing. It sounds like enlightenment. But really, it was just emotional self-flagellation dressed up as discipline. The second month into this new routine, I noticed something strange. I started resenting fun. Actual joy started to feel suspicious. If I found something too entertaining, I'd question it. Is this making me soft? Am I overindulging? What if this ruins my focus? That's when I knew I'd crossed a line. Because here's the thing, joy is not a weakness. Pleasure is not a threat. And your brain? It's not a broken machine in need of constant debugging. It's an incredibly complex, adaptive system designed to feel. To chase what's interesting. To seek color, rhythm, connection, stimulation. Yes, overstimulation is real. Yes, digital addiction is real. But the solution isn't to go full medieval monk and punish yourself for liking music. The academic community is still grappling with this. Some scientists believe dopamine detoxing has zero scientific basis. Others say it's useful as a digital fast, a way to notice compulsions and reset habits. But even among experts, there's debate about whether removing stimuli actually resets anything, or just makes you cranky and weird. I definitely became both. There was one moment I'll never forget. I was halfway through a detox day, sitting on my floor, staring at a spot on the wall where the paint had chipped slightly. I leaned in to examine it, just to do something. And I whispered to myself, "This spot is the most interesting thing in my life right now." And I wasn't joking. That's when it hit me. I hadn't become mindful. I'd become desperate. I wasn't getting better at focus. I was avoiding discomfort by controlling every ounce of input. But real focus? Real peace? That doesn't come from stripping life of joy. It comes from learning how to relate to that joy. From choosing what to engage with, not banishing everything until you feel pure. Eventually, I stopped detoxing. I let the music back in. I watched a movie and didn't feel guilty. I ate a piece of chocolate and let it melt slowly on my tongue, just to remember what pleasure felt like. And I started asking different questions. Not, is this dopamine? But, is this helping me feel alive? Not, is this overstimulating me? But, am I using this to hide from something? Because there's a huge difference between taking a break and disappearing. Now I have rules. Not harsh ones. Just gentle ones. I mute my phone sometimes. I take walks without headphones. I give myself space. But I also let joy back in. I dance. I listen to music too loud. I laugh at dumb memes. I watch terrible TV with my feet up and zero shame. Because sometimes, healing isn't about subtracting everything. It's about knowing what to keep. And sometimes, the things you think are bad, dopamine, joy, laughter, connection, are the very things that bring you back to yourself. There was a time when I would rather sprain my ankle than break a habit streak. Literally. I once did yoga with a pulled muscle, just to keep the calendar clean. Didn't even feel that zen about it, just quietly angry while stretching like a wounded flamingo. That's the thing about consistency. It starts off noble. Inspirational, even. Be consistent, not perfect, they say. Show up every day, rain or shine. Build momentum. Master your craft. Etch success into your DNA one tiny act at a time. And for a while, I bought into it. I mean, how could I not? The culture loves consistency. There are apps, quotes, mugs, entire subreddits dedicated to never missing a day. Discipline equals freedom. You're only as strong as your weakest habit. I was all in. So I built the routines. I stacked the habits. I tracked the streaks. I became a temple of daily effort. And it worked, until it didn't. Because somewhere in the repetition, I stopped noticing why I was doing what I was doing. I was afraid to not do it, even when it stopped serving me. The yoga that once calmed me became a chore. The journaling that once gave me clarity turned into a checkbox. The morning walk? Just another lap around the same emotional treadmill. But I kept going. Because that's what consistent people do, right? At some point, my life became a performance of consistency. I was showing up not for growth, but for the illusion of progress. And it got weird. I once did a 5-minute workout in an airport bathroom stall. Not because I needed exercise, but because I didn't want to break my daily movement streak. I did push-ups next to a toilet, folks. That's not grit. That's Stockholm Syndrome in yoga pants. Also, here's your off-topic fact. Lobsters don't age the way we do. They don't get weaker or slower over time, they just keep growing. Some scientists think they might be biologically immortal, until they die from external causes like being caught or running out of energy during molting. I, on the other hand, felt 93 by the time I finished my consistency era. The problem with always showing up is that it becomes identity glue. You start thinking, this is who I am. The consistent one. The grinder. The disciplined achiever. And then one day, you're too tired. Or sick. Or heartbroken. Or bored. And you skip a day. And suddenly, you don't know who you are anymore. Because if you're not doing the thing, who even are you? That moment hit me hard on a Wednesday night. I skipped journaling for the first time in over 200 days. I wasn't busy. I wasn't out. I just forgot. It was such a small thing. But I stared at that empty page like it was a moral failing. The next morning, I opened my journal and instinctively wrote, "Sorry." Like I'd betrayed it. Like my own notebook needed an apology. I laughed. Then I cried. Then I made toast and stared at the wall in silence. That's when it clicked. Consistency without kindness is just punishment. There's a quiet academic debate happening right now in behavioral science circles, whether rigid consistency actually benefits long-term change, or if it breaks people. Some researchers argue that occasional lapses improve sustainability by removing pressure. Others say lapses kill momentum. Honestly, I think it depends on whether your consistency is rooted in love or fear. Mine was rooted in fear. Fear of falling behind. Fear of being mediocre. Fear of losing all the progress I'd made. So I clung to my routines like life vests, even when the boat wasn't sinking. But here's the truth, missing a day doesn't erase your progress. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Even Olympic athletes rest. Even monks check their phones, probably. Even robots need updates. Now, I let myself miss days. I miss on purpose sometimes. I build in wildcard days, no expectations, no rituals. Just space to feel what I feel. Some days I write. Some days I wander. Some days I eat pancakes in bed and call it spiritual. And you know what happened? I didn't unravel. I didn't fall into chaos. I didn't turn into a failure. I became softer, more grounded, more alive. Because true consistency isn't doing the same thing every day. It's showing up honestly every day, even if what that looks like changes. So if you're scared to miss a day, take that as a sign you need to. Give yourself permission to be inconsistent on purpose. Not as a flaw, but as a feature. As a way to reconnect with why you started in the first place. Your habits are here to support your life, not the other way around. So if you're reading this with a streak to protect, I gently invite you, let it break. Let the chain fall. Let the page stay blank. Let the checkbox go unchecked. And watch your life open up in the space that appears. I remember staring at my reflection one morning and thinking, who even are you anymore? Not in a dramatic, movie trailer kind of way. Just a quiet, confused way. I had followed all the rules, woke up early, drank the chlorophyll water, read the books, journaled my intentions, stretched my hamstrings. I was ticking every box on the how to be your best self checklist. And yet, I didn't feel like myself. It hit me hardest during a conversation with an old friend. We were sitting at a coffee shop, and she asked me, "What do you do for fun now?" And I froze. Blinked. Sipped my match out to stall. What did I do for fun? I mean, I read. But only nonfiction. Self-help, mostly. I worked out. But with strict programming. I walked. With a podcast in my ear about optimization or biohacking. I hadn't done something pointless in months. I hadn't danced in the kitchen. I hadn't gone on a spontaneous trip. I hadn't watched a trashy show just because the lead actor looked like trouble. I hadn't drawn anything dumb. Or made a mess on purpose. Or worn mismatched socks and laughed about it. I'd built an identity entirely out of good habits. Efficient ones. Impressive ones. Ones that made people go, "Wow, you're so dedicated." And yeah, it was cool at first. Like cosplay for the person I thought I should be. But after a while, I couldn't take the costume off. I was so afraid of slipping back into my old self, the one who procrastinated, who binge-watched Netflix, who ordered fast food and slept in, that I overcorrected. I went from chaos to control. From driftwood to drill sergeant. Here's something wild. Humans construct identity not just from belief, but from behavior. There's a term for it, self-perception theory. It says we infer who we are by watching what we do. So if you do productive things all the time, your brain goes, "Oh, I must be a productive person." Which is great, until that behavior stops feeling like you. Because then, you're just mimicking an idea of yourself. And that's exhausting. Here's your oddball fact for the day: parrots name their chicks. Like each chick gets a specific call, basically a name, that sticks with them for life. Which is adorable and weirdly poetic. Because names, like habits, stick. And sometimes the names we give ourselves, the healthy one, the hustler, the focused guy, become so fixed that we forget we're allowed to change them. I had named myself the optimized one. The one who always showed up. Who always had a tip or a hack. Who never let life get messy. But the problem is, real life is messy. And so is identity. I started to feel like a brand instead of a person. Everything I did was curated, intentional, shareable. Even my rest was structured. I wasn't just doing yoga, I was doing active recovery. I wasn't just making dinner, I was fueling my system. I wasn't even sleeping, I was prioritizing cognitive recovery. Gross. One night, I walked past a mirror and barely recognized the person looking back. Not because of how I looked, but because of how I felt. Like a stranger had moved into my body and brought an overnight bag full of protein bars and affirmations. I missed the older version of me. Not the lazy parts. Not the anxious parts. But the real parts. The weird humor. The creative chaos. The slightly offbeat, slightly unpredictable, always singing in the car version of me. The one who wasn't on all the time. There's an ongoing debate in academic circles about the role of habits in personal identity. Some argue that we are our habits. Others say habits are just tools, temporary scaffolding that help us build the life we want. But when the scaffolding becomes the house, you've got a problem. I had built a house of habits. It was efficient, impressive, a marvel of daily routine. But it wasn't home. So I started tearing it down. Not all at once. I still brushed my teeth and fed myself, don't worry. But I began to question things. Why am I doing this? Is it helping? Do I even like it? Do I feel more me because of it, or less? That's when I realized how much I had outsourced my identity to routine. I thought consistency would make me whole. But all it really did was numb the parts of me that needed chaos to thrive. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit: some of us need a little mess to feel alive. I started doing things out of order. I slept in. I skipped workouts. I drew in the margins of my notebook again. I started writing poems that didn't rhyme and making playlists with songs that had no business being in the same folder. And slowly, I remembered who I was. Not the image. Not the role. The person. The one who laughed at dumb jokes. The one who daydreamed during meetings. The one who didn't always journal, but when they did, actually meant it. Now, I build habits around me. Not the other way around. If a habit supports who I already am, great. If it doesn't, no matter how good it looks, I let it go. Because identity isn't a system. It's a story. And you're allowed to edit the story anytime you want. I used to think social media was harmless. A fun little side dish to my day. 10 minutes of scrolling, a few likes, maybe post a photo of my morning matcha with the caption, "Rise and grind." Classic stuff. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, it became something else. It became my mirror. I didn't notice it at first. I just wanted to share my progress. Show people the new habits I was forming. The books I was reading. The cold plunges. The smoothie bowls arranged like abstract art. I wasn't bragging, at least, not consciously. I thought I was inspiring people. Helping them. But over time, I wasn't doing the habits and then posting about them. I was doing the habits so I could post about them. Every new routine had to be aesthetic. Every journal spread, picturesque. Even my messiness had to look intentional. Like, oops, I spilled my tea while meditating, but in a poetic way. I became trapped in what I call the hustle echo chamber, that shiny corner of the internet where everyone is waking up at 4:45 a.m., doing breath work in Iceland, and reading 10 books a week while running six-figure businesses and sipping adaptogen tonics they swear change their brain chemistry. And the worst part? I believed them. I thought they were the standard. I thought I was behind. Every time I saw someone's immaculate morning setup or productive Sunday reset vlog, I felt this quiet pressure in my chest. Not panic. Not envy. Just a slow erosion of my self-trust. Because if they were doing all that, and I wasn't, then what did that say about me? Here's something that blew my mind later. Studies show that people drastically underestimate the amount of curation behind social media posts. Even when we know it's filtered, edited, carefully chosen, our brains still respond emotionally as if it's real. Which means every time I scrolled, I wasn't just observing, I was absorbing. Comparing. Shrinking. Also, fun fact, there's a jellyfish called Turritopsis dohrnii that can literally revert its cells back to an earlier stage and essentially start life over. It's nicknamed the immortal jellyfish. Sometimes I wished I could do that. Just reset. Go back before all this started. My social feed became a highlight reel of overfunctioning. Everyone crushing goals. Everyone building empires. Everyone being so aesthetically productive that I couldn't even rest without feeling behind. But here's what people don't talk about: the deeper you go into hustle culture, the lonelier it gets. At some point, my friends stopped texting me to hang out. Not because they didn't care, but because I was never available. I always had something to do, something to build. Something to optimize. They stopped asking me out to dinner. I stopped showing up to birthdays. I even missed my cousin's baby shower because it wasn't aligned with my weekly goals. I'm not proud of that. I convinced myself that my silence was discipline. But it was really just distance. I traded community for consistency. Connection for control. And for what? A few likes? A few comments saying, "OMG, so inspiring." The more I leaned into hustle content, the more I felt seen online, but invisible in real life. My family stopped asking how I was doing. They just said, "You're always so busy." My friends started prefacing invites with, "I know you probably have a routine, but..." I became the optimized guy. The one who wouldn't eat cake. The one who left early to stretch. The one who always had a water bottle and a weird quote to share but never actually listened. It's not that I didn't care. I just forgot how to be with people without managing myself. Academic studies have started to look into this. How self-improvement culture online creates individualism so extreme that it fractures relationships. We become so obsessed with being our best selves that we stop being with others at all. Because vulnerability isn't optimized. Messiness isn't scalable. Spontaneity can't be tracked. So I slowly started muting accounts. The productivity influencers. The routine queens. The "here's how I doubled my income in 6 weeks" brothers. Not because they were wrong, but because they weren't helping me be me. Then I did something radical. I posted a photo of my unmade bed. No caption. No lesson. Just sheets in disarray and a messy pile of books. And it felt terrifying. But also honest. And slowly, I let people back in. I texted old friends, not to pitch them a new habit system, but just to say, "Hey." I went to lunch with no plan. No rules. I ordered fries. I let them see me eat fries. We laughed. We talked about nothing. And it was more healing than any podcast I'd listened to in a year. Now, when I post, it's not for validation. It's not a performance. It's an invitation. To be human. To be soft. To be uncertain and a little disheveled and wildly unoptimized. Because no amount of hustle is worth losing your people. And no routine is worth more than the sound of someone laughing so hard they snort. You know what's wild? After all the biohacks, all the apps, all the cold plunges and breathwork routines, I found out that the science doesn't even agree on most of it. Like, fully doesn't agree. I was neck deep in my optimized human phase, thinking I was following cutting-edge research. But as it turns out, half the studies I based my life on were either contradicted, misinterpreted, or based on tiny sample sizes of sleep-deprived grad students. Take hydration, for example. 1 week it was, drink a gallon of water a day. The next, you're overhydrating and throwing off your electrolytes. I was walking around sloshing like a human water balloon, only to find out later that thirst is actually a pretty reliable guide. Who knew? Or intermittent fasting. I tried every version, 16:8, 18:6, OMAD, that's 1 meal a day, if you're new to the game. And depending on which YouTube doctor I listened to, it was either adding 5 years to my life or silently destroying my metabolism. That's the thing, the experts don't agree. At least, not as much as they pretend to. There's open academic debate about nearly every good habit out there. Cold exposure? Some studies say it boosts dopamine and stress resilience. Others say the effects are minimal and temporary. Meditation? Proven benefits, but only in certain forms, and only with regular practice. Even journaling, my beloved old friend, has mixed results in clinical settings. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it increases rumination. It was like I had built my entire lifestyle on shifting sand. And the more I learned, the less certain I became. I wasn't grounded in truth. I was floating in trend soup. Also, for your mental palate cleanser, pigeons can do math. Like actual math. Studies have shown they can understand ordinal numbers and even solve simple equations. So yeah, while I was trying to biohack my brain into peak function, There was a pigeon somewhere casually outperforming me on a number line. Anyway, the realization hit me one afternoon while watching a health podcast. The guest was some expert, and he said with full conviction, "There's no doubt, sunlight before 9 a.m. increases testosterone and regulates your circadian rhythm." I paused the video. Because 2 weeks earlier, a different expert, also full of confidence, had said the sun didn't matter nearly as much as temperature changes in signaling your body clock. So who was right? Turns out maybe both. Or either. Or it depends on your genetics, your environment, your lifestyle. And suddenly I realized, I was living by the gospel of generalizations. Following rituals as if they were universal laws, when really, they were educated guesses. I had confused precision with truth. Just because something sounds specific doesn't mean it's absolute. That's a big theme in the academic world these days. People are starting to question how science gets popularized. There's rigorous, slow-moving research, then there's the version that shows up on Instagram with a bold font and a 10-second voiceover. Studies show, followed by something half-true and overly sexy. And I ate it up. Like wellness junk food. Just the right amount of authority, just the right amount of vibe. I treated influencers like prophets and peer-reviewed articles like gospel, never stopping to ask, does this actually apply to me? I was treating myself like a lab rat, running experiments without any clue how to interpret the data. And then using that confusion as fuel for more habits, more rules, more obsession. It's not that the habits were wrong. It's that I was outsourcing my intuition. I stopped listening to my body. If I was tired, I assumed I hadn't recovered right. If I was sad, I blamed my micronutrient intake. If I was bored, I thought I needed a better goal. Everything became a system to fix. And I forgot how to just feel. There's a quiet terror that comes with realizing the foundation you built your life on might not be as solid as you thought. But there's also freedom. Because if the science isn't settled, then maybe it's okay for me not to be settled either. Maybe it's okay to experiment, and not know. To try something and then decide it's not for me. To skip the morning light and still be a good human. To have coffee after noon and still sleep okay. To be my own data set. Now I've got a new mantra: if it helps, it counts. Not because someone said so. Not because a study proved it. But because I feel it. Because my life shows it. Because my relationships, my energy, my joy, that's the metric now. So yeah, I still stretch sometimes. I still journal when I want to. I even still try random trends now and then, just to see what sticks. But I don't treat anything as gospel anymore. Because science evolves. Bodies change. Life shifts. And trying to find certainty in a world of nuance is a fast track to madness. The best advice I ever gave myself was this: be curious, not religious. Let the habits be tools. Let the routines be experiments. Let your life be the lab, not the proof. And never trust someone who says there's only one way to be well. Especially if they're selling supplements. I was improving. On paper anyway. I could run farther, wake up earlier, drink more water, meditate longer, sit with discomfort better, cook cleaner meals, and even lower my resting heart rate by 2 whole beats per minute. That's right, too. I was becoming a machine of progress. But here's what no one tells you: constant improvement comes with a hidden price tag. And it's written in pieces of yourself you quietly give away. It started with the small things. I stopped doodling while on calls because it wasn't productive. I swapped fiction for nonfiction because stories don't move the needle. I declined movie nights if they ended after 9 p.m. because sleep hygiene is sacred, right? One night, a friend invited me to a spontaneous karaoke outing. My first reaction? Panic. It would mess with my routine. I hadn't prepped my meals. I hadn't done mobility work. I had a breathwork session planned. I literally said, "Let me check if it aligns with my rhythm." Who talks like that? Who was I? Here's a well-documented human behavior. When people pursue extrinsic goals, things like status, image, or even relentless self-optimization, They often experience more anxiety and less life satisfaction than people pursuing intrinsic goals like connection, curiosity, or creativity. I'd flipped the script. I wasn't becoming more myself, I was becoming more efficient. But at what? At one point, I found myself staring at a spreadsheet I'd made to track my mood, hydration, screen time, and micronutrient intake. It had 12 tabs. One of them was called Joy Graphs. The irony? I hadn't felt actual joy in weeks. Also, for our odd fact intermission, slugs have 4 noses. 4. What for? I don't know. Probably to sniff out joy better than I could. Anyway, I was always optimizing. I got better at conversation by studying active listening techniques. I got better at resting by trying every recovery protocol known to man. I got better at gratitude by writing thank you letters in perfect cursive. And the more I improved, the less I felt connected to myself. Improvement had become my identity. My purpose. My answer to everything. Tired? Try a new supplement. Lonely? Maybe it's a lack of sunlight. Anxious? Could be your magnesium levels. I was throwing tools at wounds. There's an academic debate happening in positive psychology right now. Is self-optimization actually making people happier? Or just more anxious about whether they're doing enough? One camp says it's empowering. Another says it's just a new kind of pressure, wearing a friendly face. I know which side I landed on. The dark secret of always improving is that you never arrive. There's always another level. A new skill. A tweak. A protocol. It's a treadmill in disguise. I once caught myself Googling how to optimize laughter. Like, actually searching for ways to laugh more effectively. That was the moment I knew I'd gone off the rails. Improvement had stolen the space where joy used to live. And it wasn't just personal joy, it was relational, too. I started seeing people through the lens of their potential. I'd say things like, "You know what would make you even better?" to people who didn't ask. I meant well, but I was treating everyone like projects. Like side quests in my hero's journey to becoming the most functional man alive. One friend finally snapped and said, "Can you just chill and be a person for once?" It stung. But she was right. I had become so focused on building myself that I forgot how to be myself. So I began subtracting. One habit at a time. One goal at a time. I stopped treating my mornings like sacred rituals. I started sleeping in. I replaced my mindset podcasts with music I liked in high school. I went for walks without step goals. I wrote in my journal without prompts. I started asking, what would I do right now if I didn't care about improving? Sometimes the answer was dumb. Beautifully dumb. Like dancing to a song I used to hate just to see if I still hated it. Or making a grilled cheese at 11 p.m. Or messaging someone just to say, "Hey, you crossed my mind like a raccoon crossing a highway, chaotic, fast, and a little thrilling." I remembered that being better isn't always doing better. Some days now, I do nothing impressive. I don't optimize anything. I wear the same hoodie 2 days in a row and drink coffee that's definitely not organic. I let my plants wilt a little. I skip a workout. And I don't punish myself for it. Because growth is beautiful. But so is stillness. Improvement can build you. But it can also bury you under the weight of who you're trying to be. And sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is stop striving, and just let yourself be. Burnout doesn't always look like flames. Sometimes it looks like smiling while your brain is melting. Sometimes it looks like brushing your teeth while staring at yourself like a stranger. Sometimes it looks like finishing a to-do list and feeling nothing. That was me. People think burnout is dramatic. A breakdown. A crash. But that's just one version. The burnout I had was quieter. Sneakier. It wore the costume of high performance. It looked like progress. It looked like success. I didn't collapse, I kept going. That was the problem. Every morning, I woke up and completed the list. The rituals. The reps, the routines. I tracked. I posted. I drank the green things. And underneath it all, I felt like a ghost. No joy. No spark. Just motion. It's called high-functioning burnout, when you're exhausted and hollow but still getting things done. You look fine. You even seem fine. Until someone asks you how you feel, and your mouth can't remember what honest words sound like. I remember lying on the floor of my living room in full daylight, staring at the ceiling fan. It was spinning slowly. I was spinning slowly. I had done everything right that week. And yet there I was, on the floor, completely untethered. I wasn't sad exactly. I was done. Like a candle with no wax left, but still trying to burn. When you push yourself to be better every day, you don't always notice when you've crossed the line into harm. Because the habits keep happening. The systems keep running. But the soul? It starts checking out. Also, just to keep things surreal, bananas are technically berries, but strawberries are not. Let that mess with your head for a moment, while we both try to stay grounded. Back to my burnout. I had trained myself so thoroughly to do, I forgot how to feel. If someone asked, "Are you okay?" I'd respond with a productivity stat. "Yeah, I meditated 20 minutes this morning and hit 12K steps already." Which is not an answer. It's a resume. There's a cognitive dissonance researchers are starting to examine more closely how we use good habits to mask emotional decline. The idea is that we associate burnout with laziness or chaos, not discipline. But sometimes burnout is discipline. Taken too far. Applied too hard. Wrapped too tightly around a life that needs air. I didn't realize how far gone I was until I skipped my routine one day and felt relief. Not guilt. Not shame. Relief. Like someone had untied a knot in my chest. That's when I started noticing other signs. I couldn't focus on books anymore. I was irritable in conversations, even with people I loved. I had no tolerance for spontaneity. And worst of all, I stopped dreaming. Not just at night, but during the day. I stopped imagining, hoping, planning. Everything was routine. Everything was just maintenance. Burnout in disguise is when your life looks healthy but feels heavy. When you start mistaking control for meaning. And I was deep in it. But admitting burnout is hard, especially when everyone sees you as the strong one. The optimized one. The person who's really got it together. The person people go to for advice. The person who never lets up. I had built a brand out of being unbreakable. So I started breaking in secret. Crying in the shower. Canceling plans and blaming. Bad sleep. Lying about how great I felt after cold plunges that actually left me numb. Smiling through meditation sessions where my inner voice screamed, "What are you doing all this for?" Eventually, something had to give. So I started whispering the truth. To friends. To myself. In my journal. I wrote things like, "I don't think I'm okay. I'm tired of pretending this is working. I want my life back." Just admitting it felt like a rebellion. And then I started undoing. Not quitting everything. Just loosening the grip. I let some habits fade. I let the spreadsheet go. I stopped pretending every morning needed a miracle. I slept in. I wandered. I played. I let things be messy. Imperfect. Human. And slowly, the burnout lifted, not because I conquered it, but because I stopped feeding it. Now I check in with myself before I check off tasks. I ask, am I alive in this, or am I just performing? Because real wellness isn't measured in streaks or routines. It's measured in breath. In laughter. In moments where you forget to be impressive because you're too busy being present. Burnout doesn't always look like flames. But recovery? It looks like rain. Gentle. Unexpected. Softening the soil so something real can grow again. There's no graceful way to say this. I had to break up with a good habit. The one I swore by. The one I built my life around. The one that looked amazing from the outside and felt like achievement on the inside, until it didn't. You know the one. It might look different for you, Maybe it's your morning run, or your smoothie prep, or your endless content grind, but for me, it was the entire ecosystem of self-discipline I had engineered to keep me afloat. Waking up early, tracking everything, doing just one more thing every single day. My golden routine. And I let it go. Not because I failed it, but because I outgrew it. Letting go wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks, no angry declarations. Just one morning where I rolled over, looked at the ceiling, and whispered, "I'm tired of trying so hard." That's how the unlearning began. You hear a lot about forming habits, but not nearly enough about unforming them. About the quiet grief that comes when you start removing the scaffolding you've leaned on for so long. Because that's what it felt like at first, grief. I had built so much identity around that good habit. It made me feel strong, in control, respected. It gave my days a shape, my ego a sense of safety. And when I let it go, I felt a little lost. Like I'd stepped off a moving walkway and forgotten how to walk on my own. I had to learn how to be again. Not as a project. Not as a performance. But as a person. I started by doing nothing. I stopped setting alarms. I let myself drift. I didn't track water. I didn't log gratitude. I didn't hustle. I didn't even fake it. And it felt weird. Like sitting in a quiet room where someone used to be talking all the time. But in that silence, I started hearing my own voice again. It was soft at first. Hesitant. But it said things like, "Let's go outside. Let's paint badly. Let's call that friend and just talk. Let's eat something because it sounds good, not because it fits macros." And I listened. That's when I realized that I wasn't just undoing a habit, I was relearning trust. Trusting that my value isn't in how well I optimize. Trusting that my body knows what it needs. Trusting that joy matters just as much as discipline. There's an ongoing academic debate in behavioral psychology about habit persistence versus habit flexibility. Some researchers argue that rigid routines create long-term identity anchoring. Others say adaptability leads to more resilient outcomes. You can guess which camp I've migrated toward. Because life isn't linear. And progress doesn't always wear a uniform. Some days I feel like doing yoga. Other days I stay in bed and read fanfiction. Sometimes I eat a protein-rich balanced meal. Other times I eat cereal at 10:30 p.m. and smile through every crunchy bite. And none of it defines me. Not anymore. These days I don't have a morning routine. I have a morning. Some mornings are slow. Some are chaotic. Some are deeply average. I no longer stack habits. I just check in. How are you really? What would feel kind today? What can we let go of right now? And those questions do more for me than 1,000 streaks ever could. Because I'm not a machine. I'm not a brand. I'm not a before and after photo waiting to happen. I'm just me. Messy. Curious. Sometimes tired. Sometimes on fire. But always trying, not to be better, just to be real. So if you're holding on tightly to a good habit that's quietly crushing your spirit, I hope you know this. You're allowed to let go. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to evolve. The habit doesn't make you good. You already are. So here we are. 15,000 words later, sitting together in the quiet after the storm. If you've made it this far, I hope you're not just more informed, but more seen. Because this wasn't just a story about breaking a habit. It was a story about coming home. To yourself. We chase good habits thinking they'll lead us to happiness, clarity, control. And sometimes they do. But sometimes they wrap around us like vines, beautiful at first, until we can't move without their permission. And that's when it's time to gently, bravely, let go. You don't need a perfect routine to be a worthwhile person. You don't need a bulletproof morning to matter. You don't need to be the most productive, present, optimized version of yourself. You just need to be you. Even on the days when you oversleep. Even on the days when you eat cereal for dinner. Even when you forget to journal or skip a workout, or stare blankly at the wall wondering what it all means. You are not a failure, you are human. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need a system. You don't need a 5-step plan to deserve rest, joy, softness. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to outgrow the habits that once held you up. Let it be simple. Let it be slow. Let it be enough. Thank you for being here. For sitting in this space with me. For listening all the way through. It means more than you know. Now go easy. Put the checklist down. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. You've already arrived.